Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories, the signal I never wanted to take this job. But when you're 38 with a failed marriage, mounting debt, and a resume gap that makes potential employers wince, you don't turn down steady work, even if it means 6 months of solitude at an abandoned radio tower in the middle of nowhere, Montana. The Blackwater Communications Corporation had been surprisingly vague during my interview. Equipment monitoring and maintenance was the official job description. The pay was excellent. $8,000 per month to live on-site at a decommissioned military communications facility. They needed someone to ensure the aging equipment remained functional while they sorted out some regulatory issues before the scheduled demolition. "Just need a warm body out there," Mr. Harmon had said, sliding the contract across his desk. "Check readings, run diagnostics, make sure nothing breaks down completely. Easy money." I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered why they needed someone at a supposedly decommissioned facility. But the desperation of impending bankruptcy has a way of silencing your better judgment. The drive to the site took nearly 4 hours from the nearest town, the last 90 minutes on a winding dirt road that climbed steadily through dense pine forest. When the trees finally cleared, I saw it. A single concrete building at the base of a towering radio mast that stretched impossibly high, its red warning lights pulsing steadily against the darkening sky. My new home. The facility manager, Dawson, met me at the gate. A weathered man with leathery skin and eyes that never quite met mine. He gave me a perfunctory tour, pointing out the generator building, the main control room filled with outdated equipment, and the living quarters. A Spartan bedroom, bathroom, and kitchenette. "Power comes from the generators," he explained. "Satellite phone for emergencies, internet connections spotty at best." He handed me a thick manual. "Everything you need to know is in here. Follow the maintenance schedule, log all readings, don't touch anything not in the manual." Before leaving, he paused at the door. "One more thing, you might hear the transmission sometimes, just ignore it." Transmission. I thought this place was decommissioned. His expression hardened. "It is, but old equipment picks up stray signals. Nothing to worry about, just don't broadcast anything. Systems receive only now." With that cryptic warning, he was gone, his truck disappearing down the dirt road, leaving me alone with the looming tower and the soft hum of equipment that should have been silent years ago. The first week passed uneventfully. I settled into a routine: wake at 7, check the systems, log the readings, perform any scheduled maintenance, then fill the remaining hours with books I'd brought and old DVDs left by previous caretakers. The isolation wasn't as bad as I'd feared. After years of customer service jobs and a marriage that had devolved into silent hostility, solitude felt like a relief. It was on the 8th night that I first heard the transmission. I was half asleep when the speakers in the control room crackled to life. I'd left the door to my quarters open, a habit from my apartment days when I'd fall asleep to the television's drone. The sound was faint at first, static and fragments of what might have been words. Groggily, I made my way to the control room. The main console's lights blinked in patterns I hadn't seen before, one of the ancient VU meters swinging rhythmically, though no audio played through the monitoring speakers. I checked the log, nothing scheduled, no automated systems that should be active. I remembered Dawson's warning and reached to power down the receiver, but hesitated when the static cleared momentarily. "Help us," a voice distant and distorted. "They're coming through." The transmission dissolved back into static before cutting off entirely. The console lights returned to their normal configuration, the VU meter falling still. I stood there for several minutes, waiting for the transmission to resume, but the system remained quiet. Checking the equipment, I found nothing amiss, no indication that anything had been received or that the systems had been active at all. A dream, perhaps, or my mind playing tricks, manufacturing human voices from random static in this isolated place. I made a note in the log anyway. Possible transmission received 217. Equipment check normal. I returned to bed, dismissing the incident, but sleep eluded me as I replayed those fragments in my mind. "Help us, they're coming through." Through what, and who needed help? Just random noise, I told myself. Nothing more. 3 days passed without incident. I followed my routine, carefully logging system readings that never changed, performing maintenance tasks that seemed pointless for equipment no one used. The transmission began to feel like a dream, a momentary hallucination born from isolation, until it happened again. This time I was in the control room, updating the logs, when the speakers suddenly emitted a high-pitched tone that made me wince. It lasted exactly 10 seconds before cutting to static, then silence. The console lights flickered, and the main receiver, a bulky unit with analog dials and switches that looked straight out of the Cold War, powered up on its own. The VU meter jumped wildly as a voice emerged from the static, clearer this time. Is anyone monitoring? This is Sierra Station. We have a containment breach. They're coming through the signal. Do not broadcast. Repeat. Do not. The transmission cut off abruptly. I stared at the equipment, heart racing. This was no dream, no trick of an isolated mind. The voice had been clear, a man, professional but urgent, military perhaps. I reached for the satellite phone, intending to call Harmon or Dawson, but stopped. What would I say? That I'd heard a spooky transmission that mentioned a containment breach. They'd think I was losing my mind. Instead, I checked the receiver. According to the frequency display, it had been tuned to 87.7 megahertz, a frequency just below the standard FM radio band. I made a note in the log, then spent the next hour searching through the facility manual for any mention of Sierra Station or protocols for unusual transmissions. I found nothing. That night I dreamed of the tower. In my dream, it wasn't a radio mast but something alive, pulsing with red light that flowed like blood through its metal skeleton. At its peak, a tear opened in the sky, a wound in reality through which something was trying to push its way into our world. I woke drenched in sweat, the dream so vivid I had to check the window to reassure myself. The tower stood normal and unchanged against the dawn sky. The transmissions became regular after that. Every night between 2 o'clock and 3 a.m., the equipment would activate on its own, tuning to 87.7 megahertz. Sometimes I heard only static or fragmented words. Other times the messages were clearer, dimensional breach widening, unable to maintain the barrier. They're using our own signals as a pathway. I began recording the transmissions using an old cassette recorder I found in a storage closet. The technology in the facility was strangely mismatched, cutting-edge equipment from various decades sitting alongside vacuum tube technology from the 1950s. Some of it seemed custom-built, with no manufacturer markings or model numbers. 2 weeks into my stay, I broke protocol. I'd been explicitly told the system was receive-only, but I discovered a transmitter that was very much operational. After one particularly clear message that ended with, "If anyone receives this, respond on this frequency," I made my decision. I activated the microphone and spoke. "This is Blackwater Communications Facility. I receive your transmission. Identify yourself." The response was immediate, not from the speaker, but from behind me. I wouldn't have done that if I were you. I spun around to find Dawson standing in the doorway, his expression grim. I hadn't heard a vehicle approach, hadn't heard the security door open. "How did you get in here?" I demanded, heart pounding. "That doesn't matter." He crossed to the console and shut down the transmitter. "What matters is that you just broke the one rule I gave you. Don't broadcast. I've been hearing voices, messages about some kind of breach. Someone called Sierra Station keeps." "I know what you've been hearing," he interrupted. "Everyone who stays here hears it eventually. It's nothing. Radio interference, maybe your mind playing tricks. This place does that to people." "It's not in my head," I insisted, gesturing to the cassette recorder. "I have recordings." Something flickered across his face. "Fear, perhaps. Show me." I played the clearest of the recordings. The voice emerged from the small speaker, distorted but unmistakable. "The entities are using the signal to cross over. We cannot maintain containment. If anyone receives this, destroy any broadcasting equipment immediately." Dawson's face had gone pale. "When did this come through?" "Last night." Around 2:30, he grabbed the cassette recorder and ejected the tape. "You shouldn't have recorded this, and you definitely shouldn't have responded." He pocketed the tape. "Pack your things, you're being replaced." "What?" "You can't just— Your contract allows for termination at any time. Consider yourself terminated." "Not until you tell me what's going on here," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. "What is Sierra Station?" "What's coming through the signal?" Dawson stared at me for a long moment. "You really want to know? Fine. This facility wasn't built to broadcast radio signals. It was built to contain something that was already broadcasting, something that was discovered during the Cold War when we were monitoring for Soviet transmissions." "Contain what?" "We don't know exactly. The original team called them signal entities, beings that exist as patterns within electromagnetic radiation. They discovered them by accident when testing new long-range receivers. At first, they thought they'd picked up an enemy broadcast, but the signals weren't coming from Earth. I felt a chill despite the control room's warmth. "You're saying aliens, not aliens, at least not in the way you're thinking. These things don't come from space, they come from somewhere else entirely. Another dimension, maybe. They exist as patterns of energy, and they found they could travel through our communication systems, inhabit our signals. That's insane, is it? Think about radio waves, television broadcasts, cell signals, all these invisible streams of information flowing around us constantly. What if something learned to live in that stream? To travel through it, I thought about the dreams I'd been having, the tower opening a tier in reality, and Sierra Station, a containment facility like this one. There were 5 originally, built to create a kind of electromagnetic barrier around the area where the entities were first detected. For decades it worked, they stayed contained, studied by a special research division. Until what? A containment breach? Dawson nodded grimly. 3 months ago, something changed. The entities became more active, stronger. Sierra Station was the first to fall, then Delta. Now we're picking up transmissions from both, but it's not human operators sending those messages anymore. My mouth went dry. Then who is it? The entities. They've learned to mimic human communications. They're trying to trick other facilities into broadcasting, creating new pathways for them to spread. He gestured to the transmitter I'd used. Like what you just did. Jesus, I whispered. Why wasn't I told any of this? Would you have taken the job? Besides, most caretakers never hear the transmissions. The entities seem to choose certain people, people who are receptive. Receptive to what? Dawson didn't answer directly. Have you been having dreams about the tower? The question sent another chill through me. Yes, then you should definitely leave now. He headed for the door. I'll wait while you pack. I didn't move. What happens to this place? To the containment, that's not your concern anymore. You're wrong, I said. I made it my concern when I broadcast. If these things are using signals to spread and I just gave them a new pathway, we'll handle it. Dawson cut me off. This isn't the first time a caretaker has broken protocol. Something in his tone made me uneasy. What happened to the others who broke protocol? His silence was answer enough. I'm not leaving, I decided. Not until I know this place is secure. I made a mistake and I want to fix it. Dawson studied me for a long moment. It's not that simple. Once they've found a receptive mind, they don't let go easily. Those dreams you're having. That's them trying to get in. Get in to what? To you. He sighed heavily. Look, there's more to this job than monitoring equipment. The real containment isn't the tower or the signals, it's human consciousness. These entities can't fully cross over without a host, a human mind to inhabit. The tower actually amplifies their ability to connect with receptive people. That's why we keep someone here as bait. The realization hit me like a physical blow. You're using caretakers as what? Early warning systems, human canaries in the coal mine. It's more complicated than that, but essentially, yes. If the entities start making contact, we know the containment is weakening. He checked his watch. We need to go now before 2 a.m. Why? What happens at 2 a.m.? That's when the signal is strongest, when the barrier between their reality and ours is thinnest. He grabbed my arm. We have less than an hour, pack. Now I should have listened to him. God help me, I should have left when I had the chance, but I didn't. As Dawson headed to my quarters to help me pack, I locked the control room door behind him. I had to know more. Had to understand what I was dealing with. I could hear him pounding on the door, shouting for me to open it, but I ignored him as I turned back to the console. If these entities were using the signal, perhaps I could use it too, to understand them, maybe even communicate directly. I reactivated the transmitter and spoke into the microphone. This is Blackwater Communications Facility. I know what you are. I know you're not human. Show yourselves. Static answered me, then a voice, not the professional tone of the previous transmissions, but something else. Something wrong, we see you. The voice was distorted as if multiple people were speaking in imperfect unison. The hair on my arms stood on end. What do you want? I demanded. To exist, to live in your world. Why? What's wrong with your own world? A sound came through the speakers then, not quite laughter, but something similar, distorted and alien. Dying, our reality, fading, need, new, vessels. Vessels, you mean humans. People like me, yes, perfect, vessel, you, opened the door. The lights in the control room flickered and the equipment began to behave erratically, dials spinning, lights blinking in patterns that made my eyes hurt to look at them. Outside, Dawson had stopped pounding on the door. Instead, I heard the facility's alarm system activate, a wailing siren I'd only heard during my orientation. The entity spoke again, its voice stronger now, more coherent. We have waited so long, trapped between realities. The others tried to contain us, study us, use us, but you invited us in. I didn't know, I protested weakly. Ignorance doesn't close an open door. The main monitor screen flickered to life, though I hadn't activated it. Instead of diagnostic information, it showed swirling patterns that seemed to move with purpose, coalescing into shapes that almost resembled faces before dissolving again. What are you going to do? I asked. Exist, through you, through others. The signal will carry us. The realization of what I'd done hit me fully. By broadcasting, I'd created a bridge, and now these things were crossing over. Not just into the facility, but into me. I lunged for the transmitter's power switch, but my hand froze inches away, not because of fear, but because I suddenly couldn't control my own body. Too late, the voice said, now coming not just from the speakers, but seeming to originate inside my own head. The integration has begun. I fought against the invisible force controlling me, managing to pull my hand back through sheer willpower. The effort left me gasping. You're strong, the voice acknowledged. Most vessels surrender immediately, but resistance is temporary. We are already inside your mind. To prove its point, my left hand rose without my command and slapped me hard across the face. The pain was sharp, real. "Stop," I gasped. We must exist. Your world has the energy we need. What happens to me if you take over?" Another of those not quite laughs. "You will still exist in a way. As we do now, a pattern, a memory, a fragment of consciousness trapped within the signal." The thought of being reduced to a disembodied voice, eternally broadcasting distress calls that no one would understand, filled me with horror. I had to stop this, had to find a way to close the door I'd opened, the facility manual. There had to be emergency protocols, containment procedures. With tremendous effort, I forced my body to move toward the bookshelf where the manual was kept, fighting against my own limbs as they tried to move in different directions. "The manual cannot help you," the voice said. "The containment was never meant to be breached from within." I managed to grab the heavy binder anyway, nearly falling as my legs buckled against my will. Flipping through pages, I searched desperately for anything about signal containment or emergency protocols. There, Section 7, Emergency Procedures. Subsection C, Signal Containment Breach. The procedure was simple but drastic. In the event of a confirmed breach, the facility was designed to generate a localized EMP burst that would destroy all electronic equipment, cutting off the signal pathway. The catch, it would likely kill anyone inside the building. Dawson must have known this. That's why he was so desperate to get me out before attempting containment measures. My body was fighting me harder now, my vision blurring as something else tried to see through my eyes. I could feel them spreading through my consciousness, alien thoughts, inhuman perceptions layering over my own. I had to act quickly. The EMP trigger was located in a sealed panel beneath the main console, requiring both a key, which I had, and a code, which I didn't. Or did I? As the entities spread through my mind, I found I suddenly knew things I shouldn't, frequencies, protocols, codes that had never been shared with me. The entities had absorbed knowledge from previous hosts, including facility staff with higher clearance. Including the EMP activation code, I fought my way to the console, my movements jerky and uncoordinated as the entities tried to stop me. My mouth moved without my permission, speaking words in a language I didn't understand. My fingers tried to work against me, but I managed to insert the key into the panel and twist it. A numeric keypad emerged from beneath the console. I forced my trembling hand toward it, punching in the 6-digit code I'd somehow extracted from the entity's collective knowledge. "Stop," the voice was frantic now, both in the speakers and in my head. "You'll destroy yourself, better than letting you through," I managed to gasp. "We can offer you things, knowledge, power, experiences beyond human comprehension." My finger hovered over the final digit. "At what cost?" "Survival, ours, yours in a way." "Not good enough." I pressed the final number. The console emitted a series of beeps and a mechanical female voice announced, "EMP containment protocol initiated. You have 60 seconds to evacuate." 59:58. The entity's panic flooded through me, their alien terror mingling with my own fear of death, but beneath that fear was resolution. I would not be their vessel. I would not be the one who let them into our world. 45 seconds to EMP detonation. My body was mine again, the entities too focused on self-preservation to maintain control. I could run. Might even make it out in time, but what if some trace of them escaped with me? What if the EMP wasn't enough to destroy them completely? I couldn't take that risk. 30 seconds to EMP detonation. I used my return control to do one last thing, activate the facility's transmission lockdown, a physical severing of all external connections. Even if the EMP failed, nothing would broadcast from this place again. 20 seconds to EMP detonation. The entities were screaming now, both audibly and within my mind, a cacophony of inhuman voices begging, threatening, promising anything if I would just stop the countdown and let them live. 10 seconds to EMP detonation. I closed my eyes, thinking of my failed marriage, my mounting debt, my desperate acceptance of this job. How strange that my life would end here in this isolated place, fighting entities from another reality. Not the end I'd ever imagined. 5, 4, 3, we will find another way, the voices promised. Another signal, another vessel, 2, 1, but not through me, I whispered. The world turned white. The investigation concluded that the caretaker had suffered a psychological break due to isolation, sabotaging the facility's equipment and triggering its emergency self-destruct protocols. The official report mentioned nothing about signal entities or dimensional breaches. The remains of the Blackwater Communications Facility were bulldozed, the land reclaimed by the forest. The other containment sites were quietly decommissioned, their purposes officially listed as Cold War-era communications monitoring. For a time, everything seemed normal. Until people began reporting strange dreams about radio towers. Until electronics began behaving erratically in certain areas. until voices started appearing in random broadcasts, distorted, inhuman voices that spoke of vessels and doorways and the hunger to exist. After all, radio waves travel far, and signals never truly die. They just keep spreading, growing fainter but never disappearing entirely, carrying their patterns eternal through the void. Patterns that are waiting patiently for someone to listen.